What made you go on your villain arc? When I caught my neighbor taking inappropriate photos of my teenage daughter through her bedroom window, I knew prison would be worth it. I first noticed something was off when Angela, my 14-year-old, started having trouble sleeping. She'd wake up in cold sweats, convinced someone was watching her. I brushed it off as typical teenage anxiety, even installed a nightlight to help her feel safer. But the fear in her eyes told me there was more to it. One morning while making breakfast, I noticed our next-door neighbor Gary washing his car. Normal enough, except it was 6 a.m. on a Sunday. As I poured Angela's cereal, I caught him glancing up at her window. Something about his look made my stomach turn. That weekend, I installed security cameras around the house. Angela thought I was being overprotective, but my gut wouldn't let this go. 3 days later, at 2 a.m., the motion alerts went off. I checked the footage and saw Gary, crouched in our bushes with a camera with a long-range lens. I called the police immediately. Officer Pete showed up, took one look at the footage and said there wasn't enough evidence. Turns out Gary and Pete were old high school buddies. They even played golf together on weekends. I tried getting a restraining order, but the judge said the evidence was circumstantial. Meanwhile, Angela stopped eating, her grades dropped, and she begged to switch bedrooms. I caught Gary smirking at me while mowing his lawn, like he knew he'd gotten away with it. That's when I remembered my old army buddy Chris worked as a private investigator. Within a week, he'd placed hidden cameras around Gary's house. What we found made me sick. Gary had a whole room dedicated to surveillance equipment, with photos of not just Angela, but other neighborhood girls plastered all over his walls. Chris wanted to go to the police, but I knew they'd protect their golf buddy, so I made a different plan. I started working nights at the warehouse, telling everyone how exhausted I was pulling doubles, made sure the whole neighborhood knew my new schedule. One night, I parked my car at work, had Chris drive me home, and waited. Sure enough, at 2 a.m., Gary crept into our yard. This time I was ready. I'd covered our security cameras with black tape. Funny how they malfunctioned that night. I caught him right as he was setting up his camera. He tried playing it off, said he was looking for his cat. I showed him the photos Chris had taken of his creep room. His face went white. The police found Gary 3 days later, barely conscious in a drainage ditch 2 towns over. He had multiple broken bones and couldn't remember what happened. Officer Pete came by asking questions, but my warehouse co-workers all swore I'd worked a double that night. Gary moved away a month later, left all his expensive camera equipment behind. Last I heard, he was living in his mother's basement in Ohio. Angela started sleeping through the night again. Sometimes my neighbor across the street gives me this weird look, like she knows what really happened, but then she just waves and goes back to gardening. Guess she has teenage daughters too. The thing about being a villain? Sometimes it's not about what you want to do. It's about what needs to be done. The security cameras still malfunction sometimes. Funny how that happens when certain types move into the neighborhood. Chris stops by for dinner every Thursday. We don't talk about that night, but he always brings his special toolkit, just in case. Angela's graduating next year, top of her class. She wants to be a victim's rights attorney. I sleep just fine these days. Guess I'm not the hero type after all. But when I see Angela smile again, I know it was worth it.